tell you that I'm sorry that you lost Corey. He was, to say simply, the best. I know we'll miss him for the rest of our lives. And the 2 years that I knew Corey were very difficult, but...
Apologizing is easy, for it is a social reflex, an automatic response. But does a shallow apology ever have the power to change the reality, to undo what has already been done? The reality that was captured by the cold, unwavering eye of a security camera. In a New Jersey hospital, 29-year-old Christopher Gregor was a broken man. He was crying. He was shaking. He was the picture of an utterly devastated father, whose world had just collapsed around him. His 6-year-old son, Corey Micciolo, had died. Suddenly, Christopher told the doctors a story. A terrifying story of how Corey suddenly fell ill, struggled to breathe, and then simply collapsed. It was a tragedy, an unspeakable heartbreak. Or so he said. But in any investigation, especially one involving a child, the police must verify the story. And so investigators looked for confirmation. They obtained the CCTV footage from a local gym in New Jersey. They thought they might find evidence of an accident. Instead, what they saw on that silent, grainy recording chilled them to the very bone. It wasn't a tragedy. It wasn't an accident. It was sheer, systematic horror. The camera, in its brutal honesty, was revealing a predatory act. A father pushing his own tiny son to the absolute brink of human endurance. On a treadmill, Corey's small body was breaking, failing, but the punishment didn't stop. But this story, it isn't just about a father's monstrous behavior. This is also a story about system failure, about a desperate mother's warnings that were ignored, time and time again, and about a predator who led his own flesh and blood toward an agonizing death. Today, we unveil the truth about Christopher Gregor, a crime so shocking, it paralyzed an entire nation. March 20th, Sweetwater. The time was 3:30 p.m. Inside the Atlantic Heights Clubhouse gym in New Jersey, it was quiet. The only sound was the rhythmic mechanical hum of a single treadmill. The CCTV footage shows 29-year-old Christopher Gregor walking in, followed by his 6-year-old son, Corey. Corey was a small child, so small, his head barely reached the handles of the machine he was about to be forced onto. Christopher reached out and gripped the controls. He didn't just start the machine, he spiked the speed. Corey began to run, his tiny legs blurring as he tried to keep up with the cold, metallic pace. But it was too much. Within seconds, Corey lost his balance. His face slammed into the moving belt, and his small body was thrown backward, crashing onto the hard floor. Now, stop for a second. Think about what a father would do in that moment. A normal father would hit the emergency stop, reach down, and pull his child into a protective embrace. But Christopher Gregor was not acting like a father. He walked over to the fallen boy, grabbed him by the arm, and literally dragged him back onto the moving belt. And then, he made it faster. Corey fell again, and again. Each time he was forced back up, gasping, struggling, failing. Then, the footage shows something truly chilling. A moment so bizarre it defies explanation. Christopher leans down and appears to bite the back of his son's head, as if he was a predator, goading his prey to move faster. This cycle of torture continued. Corey kept falling. He kept being dragged, but his father's rage did not flicker. When they finally returned home, Corey's mother, Breanna, noticed the marks, the bruises, the scrapes, the signs of a struggle. She asked Christopher what happened. He looked her in the eye and lied with practiced ease. He just fell once, he said. It was nothing, just a minor accident. But inside Corey's small body, something was happening. A hidden injury, a silent internal trauma that no one could see, a wound that was slowly and painfully taking his life. Weeks before Corey's final breath, a different kind of war was being waged. A war hidden behind hospital curtains and closed courtroom doors. Breanna Micciolo was not just a mother with a hunch. She was a woman watching her child fade away, right before her eyes. Every time Corey returned from his father's house, he was smaller, more withdrawn, more terrified. His body bore marks that were not the result of child's play. They were signs of something much darker, something intentional. Breanna didn't stay silent. She documented everything. She took photos. She recorded videos. She gathered the evidence of her son's pain. She stood before caseworkers and showed them the deep bruises on Corey's cheeks and the dark marks across his back. She begged the judges. She pleaded with the system. Please, don't send him back to Christopher. But then she hit a cold, clinical wall of indifference. In the eyes of the justice system, Christopher Gregor was educated. He was articulate. He was a responsible father. Breanna's screams for help, they were dismissed, labeled as nothing more than the bitter accusations of a messy custody battle. Child Protection Services conducted their visits. They asked their routine questions, and then they closed the file. They chose to believe Christopher's polished lies. They believed his smile, and they ignored the silent wounds on Corey's body, wounds that were screaming for someone to save him. April 1st, exactly 24 hours before Corey's heart would stop beating. Breanna stood in court, her heart sinking into her chest. One last time, she begged the judge to protect her son. One last time, she pleaded for Corey's life. The judge's ruling was final. Motion denied. Corey was handed back to a predator, a man who now knew that the law would not stop him. As Breanna watched Corey climb into Christopher's car that afternoon, she didn't know it was the last time she would see him alive. The system had spoken. The decision was made. And for Corey Micciolo, a death warrant had just been signed. April 2nd, 2021. The afternoon silence was heavy, like the calm before a devastating storm. Christopher woke Corey from his nap, but the little boy who used to run and laugh was now just a shadow. His steps were heavy, his speech was slurred, and he was battling a wave of nausea. Christopher eventually moved to take him to the hospital. But as the minutes ticked by, Corey was fading. During that short, frantic car ride, Corey uttered words that remain the most haunting part of this entire case file. He looked at his father and whispered, "Daddy, I'm dizzy. I can't see anything." The moment they burst through the doors of the emergency room, the scene shifted into chaos. The doctors saw it immediately. Corey's lungs were failing. His heart was giving out. That cold, sterile ER room was suddenly filled with the rhythmic beeps of monitors, the frantic movement of nurses, the desperate rhythm of CPR. They fought for him. They tried everything. But at 5:03 p.m., the line on the monitor went flat. Corey Micciolo was gone. On the surface, it looked like a sudden, tragic medical emergency. But when the forensic pathologist began the internal examination of that small, broken body, a terrifying reality emerged. The silence of the morgue was shattered by what they found. Corey's liver was severely lacerated. Blood was pooling around his heart. His internal organs were crushed, destroyed. As if he had survived a high-speed collision. The medical team was stunned. There was no car accident, no evidence of a fall from a great height. The experts reached a chilling conclusion. This was not a natural death. This was blunt force trauma. Corey's internal injuries were silent, witnesses to the treadmill, torture, and the weeks of systematic abuse he had endured. The autopsy report finally used the one word that changed everything. The word that closed the net around Christopher Gregor: homicide. As soon as the autopsy report hit the desk, Christopher Gregor knew. He knew the clock had run out on his lies. But instead of facing the consequences, instead of answering for what he had done, he chose the path of a coward. The moment Corey's death was officially labeled a homicide, Christopher vanished. He turned off his phone. He cut his ties. And he fled New Jersey. He ran, as if he could outpace the truth. Warrants were issued. The hunt was on. Law enforcement tracked him from state to state, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse that lasted for months. But the long arm of the law is patient. In July 2021, the search finally came to an end. The police caught up with him, and as the cold steel of the handcuffs snapped shut around his wrists, something was missing. There were no tears. There was no grieving father persona anymore. There was only a cold, hollow silence. His face showed no regret, no remorse for the life he had extinguished. The news of his arrest sent a shockwave across America. The public was horrified. A father, who watched his own son wither away, was now trying to escape the justice he deserved. But the true spectacle was only just beginning. Because Christopher Gregor was not going down without a fight. He still had one final card to play, and he was planning to play it in a court of law. The air inside the New Jersey courtroom was so thick with tension, it was suffocating. Christopher Gregor sat at the defense table, facing charges of first-degree murder and child endangerment. The man who once ran from the law was finally cornered by it. The prosecution brought forward a witness that could not be cross-examined and could not lie. The silent witness, the notorious Jim CCTV footage. As the video played on the large courtroom screens, members of the jury turned their heads away in horror. They weren't looking at a father training his son. They were watching a man systematically breaking a 6-year-old boy. Like a machine, the defense tried to build one last wall of deception. They presented a desperate, almost absurd argument. They claimed Corey didn't die from the treadmill. They claimed he died from pneumonia. They tried to paint Christopher as a father who just wanted his son to be fit. But when the medical experts took the stand, that wall crumbled. Doctors stated clearly and firmly, pneumonia does not lacerate a liver. Pneumonia does not cause blood to pool around a human heart. These injuries were the direct result of deliberate, human brutality. During the trial, Christopher himself stood to testify. He tried to play the grieving father card one last time, but the jury saw through it. To them, his tears weren't those of a father. They were the performance of a calculated actor. After weeks of grueling testimony, the moment arrived. The moment Corey's mother had waited 3 agonizing years for. The jury reached their verdict. Christopher Gregor was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter. The judge's words echoed through the silent room and into the hearts of everyone watching. "You treated your son like a toy," he said, "something you could manipulate at will. But the law does not allow it." The sentence was handed down, 25 years in state prison, with no chance of early parole. Outside the courthouse, Breanna Micciolo stood in the light. It was a victory, but it was a heavy one. Corey was never coming back. But his story, his pain, became the foundation for massive changes in America's child protection system. Christopher Gregor is now behind bars, facing the reckoning of his own sins, while Corey Micciolo lives on. He lives on in the hearts of millions who refuse to let his voice be silenced. Justice and finally unserved.